Well, g'day and welcome to the Choosing Your Uni Expo. My name is Rob Malicki and I'm your MC for today's session on the University of Melbourne. It's a big one. And before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I stand right now, and that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. But before I get started, I just wanted to let you know what's coming up in the next 20 minutes. And firstly, hello to those people who are joining me live on the live stream. Thanks so much for being here. Of course, you can ask questions in the chat. And if you're watching this on the replay, I'd like to just tell you about the topics that we're going to be going through in the next 20 minutes or so. So firstly, what's the University of Melbourne known for and who do well studying there? We're going to hear a bit about what students have to say when they are studying there, so hear from students who are studying there. And we're also going to find out about the academic strengths, and then we're going to get into the hard data: student satisfaction, employment, salary, rankings. And you know what? I'm going to be really straight with you about what those numbers actually mean for you. We're going to get behind the hype, and at the end, I'm going to tell you which universities I would actually consider if I were considering the University of Melbourne, just to help you build your shortlist. If you're watching live, drop your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to them in the end. And if you're watching this on the replay, you can jump into the Choosing Your Uni Discord. You'll find the link in the description below. And that's where you can have all of your personal or your general questions answered. And parents, we've also got a dedicated Facebook community just for you. You'll find it in the session details below. Before we get started, this event is made possible by our major sponsor, Choosing Your Uni. And I'd like just a quick word from them, and then we're going to get straight into it.
Today's students are tomorrow's front line. Today's visionaries will become tomorrow's leaders. And today's research will discover tomorrow's solutions. For ourselves, for others, and for our world. Southern Cross University, transforming tomorrow.
Here's a number that surprises people about the University of Melbourne, and that's that the University of Melbourne has a graduate employment rate of 67.7%. That's the lowest of any of the group of 8 universities in the country. And yet, Uni Melbourne is ranked number 1 in Australia and 19th in the world. So what's going on? How can those two things be true? I'm going to explain that contradiction to you in just a minute, because it actually tells you everything about what Melbourne is and who it's for. This uni is probably not for you if you want to finish a professional qualification as fast as possible and then start working. Melbourne doesn't offer undergraduate law or Melbourne. In fact, you do a 3-year bachelor's degree first, and then you do a graduate professional degree on top, which takes longer. It costs more, and that's deliberate. It's not an accident. It's also probably not for you if you want a small, intimate campus where everybody knows your name. Melbourne has over 77,000 students. It's a big, busy, ambitious place. And you know what? It's probably not for you if you're chasing the cheapest path through university, particularly if you're an international student. Melbourne, well, it's Melbourne, and Melbourne is expensive. However, if none of that has scared you off, stay with me. Before I tell you what I think, let's hear from some students who've actually studied there. And you can explore all of the sessions, including our keynotes, at expo.choosingyouruni.com. There's a link in the description below. Let's hear from some students right now. Tell me what it's like to study at Melbourne Uni.
So I'm a first year student, and so is Lizzie, because she's my friend. And so far, I think it's like a melting pot in the uni. Like study-wise, of course, the contents I'm really happy with. My major is anthropology.
Awesome.
And I am very happy with the teachers and the faculty here. But yeah, for me, I'm very happy with the teachers and the friends I've made here, and the different culture, and representing French Club here, although I'm not French. And you know, it's one of the things about representation.
Okay, so that's one perspective, but everyone's experience is different. If you've got questions about Melbourne or about uni in general, make sure you drop them in the chat and I'll do my best to get to them. So let me give you 3 things that define this uni. Firstly, the Melbourne model. This is the big one. Back in 2008, Melbourne overhauled its entire degree structure. Instead of letting you jump straight into law or medicine or engineering from high school, they moved into what they call a 3+2+3 system. You do a 3-year undergraduate degree, something broad like arts or science, commerce or design. Then, if you want to do a professional qualification, you do that on top via a master's degree. And a PhD, a doctorate degree, is after that if you want to go further. So what does this matter? Well, because it means your undergraduate degree at Melbourne is deliberately broad. You're required to take what they call breadth subjects. That's units outside your main area of study. So for example, a science student might take philosophy. A commerce student might take music. The idea is that you don't just become a specialist, but you become someone who can think across different fields. Now, not everybody loves this. If you already know at 17 that you want to be a lawyer, doing a 3-year arts degree first can possibly feel like a bit of a detour. At most other Australian unis, including some really good ones, you can enter law or medicine directly from high school. However, the University of Melbourne made a conscious decision to go the other way. It's modelled on the approach that you see at top universities in the USA and in Europe, and it's genuinely unusual in Australia. But you need to decide if that structure suits you. If you're thinking about the cost, and you should be, the Australian Government session on support for university studies covers how HEX Help works in detail, including what changes when you're doing a longer pathway. And that's relatively important for basically all domestic students. Of course, if you're an international student, doing multiple degrees has an immediate impact on your finances. Second, research intensity. The University of Melbourne has over 100 research centres and institutes. It has the second highest research expenditure of any institution in the entire country, second only to the CSIRO. Let's talk about academic and research strengths. And let's have a look at what Melbourne is actually strong at. And I've got to say, it's a very, very long list. The Uni of Melbourne has 14 subject areas ranked in the global top 20. That's more than any other Australian university. Its law school, Melbourne Law School, is ranked number 8 in the world. Education, medical and health sciences, engineering, and the social sciences are all globally recognised. The 9 faculties cover essentially everything from law, medicine, science, engineering, arts, business and economics, architecture, fine arts and music, and education. And with more than 400 graduate programs across 18 graduate schools, the range at postgraduate level is absolutely enormous. Now, one thing that's distinctive about Melbourne is the breadth requirement that I mentioned earlier. In your undergraduate degree, you don't just pick a major and stick to it. You're required to explore. A student studying biomedicine might take a subject in urban design, and someone in commerce might study Indigenous history. The university genuinely believes this makes you a better thinker, and employers tend to agree. Melbourne is ranked 8th in the world for graduate employability. On the research side, the Melbourne Biomedical Precinct is an absolute standout. It's a cluster of hospitals, research centres and university facilities all sitting within walking distance of each other. And this is particularly interesting if you're interested in cancer research, neuroscience, neuroscience, genomics, public health, and this is one of the most concentrated research environments that you can find just about anywhere. Melbourne Connect is the university's newest innovation precinct, focused on technology, AI, and industry collaboration. And there's a major new campus being developed at Fisherman's Bend for engineering and design. This is a university that's still growing its physical footprint. Student life is shaped by scale. There are over 200 clubs and societies, and students from more than 130 countries, which gives the campuses this awesome flavour. Now, a strong student union is a tradition at the University of Melbourne. And it's not a place where you'll feel like a number if you do engage, but you do need to put yourself out there. Big universities reward people who seek things out. Now, for anyone interested in AI, we have got a great session with the University of New England on studying with AI and AI and the future of work. And these are both worth watching if you're basically studying anything, doing any kind of degree. So you can check out the details of those sessions in the link below. Melbourne also offers something called graduate degree packages. So you can actually secure a place in a graduate professional program like the Juris Doctor for Law or for the Doctor of Medicine before you even start your undergraduate degree. So if one of the things that you're worried about in regards to the Melbourne model is that professional pathway going from your undergraduate into a postgraduate degree and making sure that you can get in, this particular pathway lets you lock in that professional goal up front while still being able to get a broad undergraduate education. There are over 1,200 scholarships and prizes available from the University of Melbourne, including the NARM scholarship for students from equity backgrounds. And for international students, there are scholarships on offer between 25 and 100% tuition fee remission. So there is money there to help students, but you just have to look for it. Now, here's another student with their take on what it's like to study at the University of Melbourne.
All right, Alex and Will, what's it like studying here? What's it like being at the Uni of Melbourne?
Yeah, it's definitely got its advantages. Like, it's not a bad place to be. It can be a bit of a labyrinth sometimes, for sure.
It is massive.
Yeah, it's huge, and I still get lost, and I've been here for 4 years.
Yeah.
But no, I'd say it's a good place to be if you know what you want from it. If you can navigate it and learn to navigate it by getting tips from others.
Can you tell me more about that? So, what are the advantages of being here?
I mean, for me, it's kind of having access to like other people and other minds that are really passionate about what they do, that know a lot about what they do and have like experience and expertise. But at the same time, like these minds can be hard to find. Like these kinds of people can be hard to find. Because the university can be so big and so alienating. Yeah.
Now, everyone's experience at a university of this size is going to be different. That's just part of the deal. I mentioned that surprising employment figure at the top of this session, and in a moment, I'm going to show you the actual numbers: satisfaction, employment, salary, and rankings. I'm going to explain why the university ranks number 1 in Australia also produces some data that might make you pause. The answer is maybe more interesting than you might initially think. Right, the numbers. And with Melbourne, they tell a genuinely complex story. Student satisfaction is at 73.8%. That comes from Quilt, which is a national student survey system where students rate their experience. 73.8% is kind of low when compared against the national average. Large research-intensive universities tend to score lower on satisfaction surveys everywhere in the world. The teaching is often pitched at a very high level and class sizes can be large in the early years. And the student support structures don't always feel personal. It's in fact a pattern you see across the entire group of 8. Teaching quality ratings follow a similar pattern. Melbourne's academics are amongst the most credentialed in the entire country. They're most qualified. But the student experience of teaching, especially in first year, doesn't always match the institution's reputation. Let's look at graduate employment, and here's where that 67.7% figure comes in. That's the rate of graduates in full-time employment 4 months after finishing. And it's low, genuinely low. Charles Sturt University, by comparison, sits at 91.2%. James Cook is at 89.5%. So what's happening? Well, it's two things. First, the Melbourne model means many graduates finish a 3-year undergraduate degree and then go straight on to further study. They're not in the workforce 4 months later because they're still at university. Secondly, Melbourne graduates tend to be more selective about the roles that they do accept. They're often holding out for graduate programs at top-tier firms rather than taking the first job that's available. 3 years after graduation, 91% are employed full-time. So the short-term number doesn't capture the full picture. Median starting salary is $65,300. Again, that's lower than many regional universities. The University of Southern Queensland's median salary is $80,000. Uni of Tasmania is $78,000. Why? Because those universities produce a lot of graduates in nursing, education and allied health, professions with immediate, structured employment and standardised salaries. Melbourne produces more graduates in arts, humanities and social sciences, where early career salaries often start lower and grow significantly over time. Let's talk about rankings. The University of Melbourne is ranked 19th in the world by QS and 37th by the Times Higher Education. It's first in Australia on both of those rankings. And that's genuine. But rankings measure lots of things that aren't necessarily relevant to you. So things like research output, academic reputation, citation impact, and they value that more than they measure what your classroom experience will be like. So you really need to keep that in mind. You can compare those numbers side by side with any other university on the Choosing Your Uni platform. So if I were making this decision, I wouldn't evaluate Melbourne in isolation. Let's make a couple of comparisons. Well, the first comparison is perhaps the most obvious one, and that's comparing Melbourne with Monash University. And this is the one that most Melbourne students and international students are already probably weighing up. Monash Uni is also a group of 8 university. It's also in Melbourne, and it's also extremely well ranked. It's ranked 36th in the world by QS. But at Monash, you can enter professional degrees directly from high school. You can start a law degree, an engineering degree, or a pharmacy degree right in first year. So if the Melbourne model feels like a detour, Monash gives you a direct route at a comparable level of prestige. Student satisfaction at Monash is 73.1%, which is still similar to Melbourne, and graduate employment is 82%, which is significantly higher, of course taking into consideration what we've already talked about. So you can watch the Monash session, you can find the details in all of the sessions below. Now, the second comparison is the University of Sydney, which is the nearest university in terms of profile and ambition. It's ranked 25th in the world by QS. It's the oldest university in Australia, the way that Melbourne is the second oldest. Sydney does offer direct entry to professional degrees, which gives you a different structural experience. And it's in Sydney, which is a different city with a different feel, but similarly high cost of living. If prestige and breadth of options are what you're after, Sydney to me is the natural interstate comparison. And you can watch a session on the Uni of Sydney as part of this expo. Third, and this is the one which might surprise you, and that's the Australian National University. The ANU is ranked 32nd in the world, and it's in Canberra, of course, as the National University. It's smaller and it has a campus culture that's much more contained and community focused. If you're drawn to academic rigour and intellectual breadth, but you want a place where you're not just a number amongst 77,000 part of a machine, ANU offers you something that's genuinely different. Now, student satisfaction at the ANU is 79.4%, which is well above Melbourne's, and we've got a session, of course, on the ANU as well. And if you've got specific questions about any of these universities, the Choosing Your Uni Discord is there for students and Facebook community is there for parents. Links are in the description below. But one more thing. If you're still figuring out how to make this kind of decision at all, what I would really recommend you do is go and watch the Making Confident Decisions keynote with Anita Van Rooyen from Student Confidence. It's an absolutely awesome one that gives you a framework of how to answer these kind of questions without feeling completely overwhelmed. Okay, before we wrap up, I'd like to just get to a couple of questions that came in from pre-registered participants ahead of this session. And the first is from Priya, who asks, if I do a 3-year bachelor's at Melbourne and then a 2-year master's, does that mean I'm paying for 5 years of university instead of 4? And the answer is yes. Broadly speaking, the Melbourne model does mean more years of study for many professional pathways. And that of course means more time paying for accommodation, study costs, and even though domestic students can access HECS help, which is the Australian government scheme where you don't pay for your tuition up front, but you pay it back through the tax system once you're earning over a certain threshold. Now, the University of Melbourne argues that broader undergraduate education and then going into broader undergraduate education and the specialist graduate degree together produce a better outcome. And to be honest, I personally actually agree with that. In a world where AI is going to become such an important part of the workplace, the ability to think broadly is becoming more important than ever before. All right, there's a second question that came in advance, which was how much does the ATAR really matter in the long run? So firstly, the ATAR, your Australian Tertiary Admissions Rank, is a percentile ranking that compares you against other Year 12 students. It matters for getting in the door, and a higher ATAR opens more doors and a lower one closes some. But I'll be really honest, once you're at university, nobody, as in nobody, will ever ask you about your ATAR ever again. Your grades, your experiences, your networks, and your ability to actually do the work is really what determines what comes next. So if you like, an ATAR is a bit like a sorting tool that helps get you through some doors and might stop others from opening, but it's not a life sentence and it's definitely not your destiny. I like to say that there are many ways to get into any option that you're interested in. So even if you don't achieve the ATAR that you're hoping to get, doesn't mean that you won't be able to get into that program eventually. So there's plenty of different options. There's transfer, there's TAFE, there's mature age entry that get people to exactly the same place in the long run. Now, if we didn't get to your question today, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will go and we'll answer those in the Discord community and in the Facebook community as well. And that concludes our session on the University of Melbourne. Remember, the Virtual Expo is on all week. Every session is available not only live, but also on demand. And you'll find the full schedule in the Expo Hub. The details are down below. I'd like to flag a couple of sessions specifically. If you haven't yet watched Start Here, Getting Started with Choosing a University, that's the one that walks you through the whole process of choosing a university from scratch. We've also got a great session from Australian Government on funding and support for Australian domestic students, and I think you'll find that one the most practical and useful sessions of the entire week. So don't skip that. Now, if you haven't already, check out the Choosing Your Uni YouTube channel. We've done independent reviews on every single university in Australia. And the Choosing Your Uni platform is free to use. It's built to help guide you to the fields of study and the degrees that line up best with you. It takes like a minute to sign up and it's free. You'll find all the details down below. And remember, any questions, the Choosing Your Uni Discord is the place to go for independent advising from real people with no sales pitch. Thanks for joining me for this session on the University of Melbourne. I'll see you later. Well, I hope you got something out of this session. And if you have any questions at all, you can head to choosingyouruni.com and ask Lumen. Lumen is your AI guide who knows about every university, every pathway, every option that we've talked about throughout this virtual expo. And Lumen is available to talk to you 24/7. So it's ready when you are.